year, Lamar went in Mexico and I worked with Jose, who you saw in the movie, and their team to do the Ibogaine. And it's a really miraculous thing. I think Africa, one of these days, it's going to be recognized that this is the place in the world, like where life started, and all these amazing plants exist. And here we have this plant that can solve so many of our, current day problems that I think that's going to be recognized, and it's going to save the world, because there's nothing else that's going to break a heroin or opiate addiction or anything like that other than Ibogaine. And I think the fact that you don't have to go through detox, 6 weeks of hell of trying to detox off these compounds is very difficult, and then you spend your whole life trying to fight the cravings. And so the fact that Ibogaine miraculously, does this reset, and it's said to whiten your prefrontal cortex, which gets rid of the cravings. So you have this window of sobriety to change your lifestyle. And that, I think everybody deserves that, because we're all addicted to something. I got a sugar addiction, I'm already thinking about what chocolate item I'm eating later. So, but anyways, I want to, take questions from people here, because, it's all about education at this point. So if anybody has a question, love to answer. Yeah.
Hi. Thank you. First, Lamar, I want to say congratulations and thank you for sharing your story with us here in Louisville, Kentucky. I wanted, if you could share, both of you could share your thoughts, because we're having a struggle here. A lot of people are pushing against this because of ignorance, lack of knowledge, and we're trying to figure out how to educate our communities. We have political issues around this, politicians who are fighting against something that I absolutely support. And we really want to know how to effectively make people stop looking at politics and look at people over politics.
That's a good question. For me, it's about education, because I've talked to a lot of treatment center owners and people who are responsible for getting people healthy, and they don't even know about it. So I feel like, Lamar, since his experience, he's involved, and I'll let him tell you about his Florida recovery centers, but, just the fact that he has this knowledge, that he can carry this experience for those people, it feels like, you could do 100 million, different things to try to, convince somebody, but I think it's the story of somebody like Lamar personally, to see, like I did in that, few years that we were doing that, to watch that progression and see him here with these treatment centers now helping so many people. So
yeah, I've been blessed enough to, with Zappy's help, to not partake in drug use anymore. And with some hard work and some will, I've linked up with recovery centers in LA, and soon I'm trying to get my own one day. And, if I'm all over the movie suffered 12 strokes and 6 heart attacks when I went to that fucking brothel, and I was I was more confused and upset, because honestly I didn't even have any coke to take to the brothel. So I think somebody must have put some in my drink or poisoned me or tried to kill me. But I'm here now, and I think my purpose is to help other people with the same problem that I have.
So, my name is Amanda Newton. I've worked in behavioral health for 24 years. I want to say thank you for bringing your story. A statement, it's interesting tonight that I just wrote an article for a medical director for the largest behavioral health treatment provider in the United States about psychedelic medicine, because they're a proponent for it and they're going to bring it forward. So I'm super excited about that. People are actually listening. But my question is, all of us in this room are obviously interested. What are some things that the community at large can do to really get involved in this movement?
That's a good question too. I think if, we released, Lamar and I, we just released the movie free on YouTube for everybody. We had, put it out in a sort of exclusive basis, but we just opened it up so that millions of people can see it. And I think, entertainment is one of the ways you do it, because if we just tried to sit here tonight without the movie and just say, hey, here's what happened, it's very difficult to communicate in words. I think you have to, see somebody like Lamar go through it. And I think Lamar is a very special case where so many people followed him as a Laker, but then they got to see him as a Kardashian, and they really felt like they know him. So it's like, in that knowing him, they were able, if you saw me in this story, you'd be like, I don't know, maybe something else happened that changed him or something, or maybe he was always that way. But to see Lamar, somebody that that people feel like they know, to see him go through it, I think this is the thing that's going to bring it about. I think if, everybody here can share the movie, it's on YouTube now as of 6 o'clock tonight. And if you guys can share the movie, we can just get people to watch and see somebody that they recognize and feel like they know have that transformation. That's the best thing we can do. Entertainment, education, and that feels like how we're going to do this, because it's new. Like I said, this has been suppressed since the 1950s or 60s, and all psychedelics were put on Schedule 1. And that means that according to Schedule 1, there's no medical benefit, and it has a high propensity for addiction.
Right.
And so the reality is ibogaine is completely non-addictive. This is probably the least addictive substance in the world. And nobody would want to, do this if they didn't have to. And so, when you look at that, we just have to educate people. This ibogaine, I'll tell you one quick story. Ibogaine never should have been on Schedule 1. What happened is there were some drug dealers in San Francisco who were dealing drugs. They got addicted to their own heroin, and they reached out to the person, this Dr. Lotsoff, who had really brought about ibogaine as a treatment, and they asked him to send them some. He sent it, and they used it, and they broke their addictions. And very shortly after that, the police raided their place, and they said, everything in this place, put it on Schedule 1. Heroin, LSD, ibogaine, put it on Schedule 1. And that's how ibogaine got on Schedule 1. But it's actually was sold over the counter since the 1950s by a French company through the 70s under a brand called Lambrine, and it was for virility. And so it's known to be safe, it's totally non-addictive, and it has this quality that we need in society right now, because an average typical treatment center, after you go through all that hell, 5% of the people walk out and can carry on being sober. And I would venture to say that if you have the support and can change your lifestyle after ibogaine, you have a shot to be the rest of your life. Here Lamar is, 5 years later. And, I wouldn't want to go through detox if I'm lazy. So if I was, addicted to some compound, to go through 6 weeks of hell and then spend the rest of my life. I've been to AA meetings. I've sat there and watched people, and they say, I'm sober, I'm so happy, I'm here at the meeting, I'm sober. Then I watch them, and they're drinking 6 cups of coffee with sugar in it. They're smoking their vape. They're on Xanax. And I'm like, and they're saying, I got to go back to a meeting in 3 hours so I don't use. And I'm like, oh my God, that's not a life. Do ibogaine, go through a rough 12, 24 hours, and then come out the other side, not crave it. And there's even some evidence that came out recently that said when you do ibogaine, medically, when you come out, you're 1.7 years younger by all your biomarkers. And so, this is something, so I got to do it like 10 times and get 17 years back. But no, it's really something that, again, I did ibogaine myself in 2015. Just wanted to have the experience. I tried everything else. I was helping a lot of people with other things, and I wanted to have the experience. And long story short, it was, a tough night. It was a tough 24 hours. But when I finally surrendered to what I needed to surrender to, I was free, and I felt ever since, that time in 2015, I'm still in this afterglow, and that's why when I met Lamar, and I was like, oh my God, I was thinking to myself, this is an African guy, African-American guy, this is an African root, maybe he's been cut off from it culturally, maybe he's supposed to have
That's
this,
right.
So, we just have to get over, whatever political views and all these people who don't want you to get sober. They want you to stay in that addiction for their own purposes. And we have to break that with, people like Lamar who are brave enough to do this.
Thank you.
Politicians are fighting against ibogaine?
Yes.
That's part of the question that I have, because when you said that, it sparks a conversation with me. I know several people in the room, faces I recognize him. This is Kentucky. We are fighting the stigma. When I reflect on the field and thinking about how you guys are using, right? This is harm reduction for us. This is a movement, if anyone in the room is working on harm reduction, is a huge fight for us here in Kentucky. A lot of our harm reduction data that we're getting and practices that we could use to help the community, politically we're totally against. So when I think of, we're talking about psychedelics here, we're talking about these are things that are going to have to be used in a safe environment with medical providers. We're talking about capacity. There's going to be a lot of fight for us here in Kentucky to get all of those things supported. I think if anyone here is in the Kentucky Harm Reduction Coalition, they can share with you how hard it is to get funded.
Right. That's me.
Yeah, so there you go.
But yes.
I want to call out a couple people that maybe have to say a few words. For sure, I want to have Trevor Millar, who's an ibogaine expert, come down. So I just want to pass it over. This is where Lamar went in Mexico, and these guys, are incredible, and they do this every day, and it's just amazing to see. So.
Thanks, Appy. Thanks, Lamar. Nice to meet you in person finally. Jose, who you saw give ibogaine in the movie, is my business partner. We've been providing ibogaine in Tijuana, Jose for more than 7 years now, but as Ambio for the last 2 years. And I started doing this in Vancouver, where I'm from, and I was able to legally work with it there. But I think you have to realize the opportunity you have in Kentucky right now is mind-blowing. What Brian Hubbard is doing with this initiative to try and get ibogaine a part of the conversation, it is trailblazing and courageous in a way unless you've been in this world for a while, you don't realize it. The reason, one of the many reasons why ibogaine is not a prescription drug now is it's not a patentable molecule. So there's not the regular incentive that pharmaceutical companies have to develop a molecule like this. But what it's going to take is state money. What it's going to take is state initiative to say, look, we're going to do this because it's obviously the right thing to do. It's what we need to do. And what Brian's doing is, it will go down in history as one of the most forward-thinking medical interventions to help this opioid crisis, which is mind-blowingly devastating, right here in Kentucky. You people are the people that are interested in this, so you have to get the word out to the rest of the state and let people know how important it is what Brian and the rest of the crew are doing here. So thank you so much for hosting this. It's incredible.
This is not a political question, Lamar. This is a personal question. When we were watching the film, my son, who was 22, made the observation the morning after the treatment. He looked at me and he said, "Mom, he looks so much happier."
Oh, the treatment, the ibogaine treatment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you take us back to that moment? How did you feel?
Well, I was tired. I've done a lot of drugs in my young life, and the ibogaine was strong. So I was a little tired, but I was just open, to get better. And I had to submit that I'm an addict and I need help. I couldn't beat it by myself, and I'm here now. I wish I could move to Kentucky to tell everybody about Idle Game and tell them how to help me. But I don't know. I'm all about seeing people live their best lives. And that's my purpose.
Let me just call out one other person before I take some more questions. I want to give a shout out to Rex Elsas, who's here in the second row here. He's been an incredible force. He's been to all the meetings in Kentucky. He comes from Ohio. He's been a force to bring Lamar and I here for this, and along with Vaughn to organize this. So, it's people who've gone through some personal things, and he has a personal story about losing his son. And that was, something that, is almost impossible to come back from. And he just, worked his will. And just recently, and about 3 weeks ago, he went down and did ibogaine himself. So, I want to, maybe I can just, if you don't mind saying, because, this is somebody who's never done any drugs, and, this is not...
Thank you very much. First of all, let me just tell you, I'm going to ask Brian to stand up. This is a hero. This is a frontiersman. This is Kentucky's best son. I had him up in Ohio for a Reed Foundation event, reaching everybody in distress. It's named for my son, Reed. And his life put me on this mission to bring hope and healing when people think there's not. And you know what? If we relied on the typical process and rehabs and politicians, there would be no hope. It'd just be continued death. But I want to introduce a friend of mine that I brought here with me tonight, Robert Sprague. He's the treasurer of the state of Ohio and going to be the next governor of Ohio. This will happen because it's God's will.
That's right.
It's God's will that we be all He created us to be. And my experience, like yours, 3 weeks ago, it's like I was unplugged from an electric socket and the neurotic energy disappeared. I don't need a study. I don't need a lot of people spending hundreds of millions of dollars to tell me whether or not I am whole. So we are going to make a difference together. We just have to trust what God's telling us to do. And do it. We need to be free. And the freedom in us will provide freedom in everyone. Because we are one nation, unified in unity. And I'm going to be coming back to California because I work for an organization called the AIDS Health Foundation in California. And I believe they can do significant amounts of work because they're a $3.5 billion organization dedicated to preserving life and giving hope and opportunity. So we're going to talk more about that, but I didn't invite me to speak.
I'm always, when somebody doesn't have an addiction, but they want to help and they want to understand and have that direct experience. I think it's, there's a show that was on Netflix, very popular by Michael Pollan, called How to Change Your Mind, that a lot of people have seen. And he was a 60-year-old guy, never did any drugs at all, and he wound up doing psychedelic medicine, and it changed his life. He was already successful, best-selling author. It changed his life. He made that television program. And it takes people like him and Rex and people who are not your typical people to have the experience and say, hey, you know what? I'm sitting here without anxiety, without just too amped up. I'm present in the present moment. And I think when I see people in the present moment, it feels really good, and I want that for everybody. So I think people like Lamar and Rex and everybody else that is a real, regular human being doing this and sharing, I think that's what's gonna really change people's mind. I hope they don't have to go through, more deaths and continue, because there's nothing that's gonna work. You can't talk your way out of this stuff, and you can't, pray your way out. You need, I'm gonna say this, make this statement that I don't want to die and be at the pearly gates and be looking at God, and God says to me, why did this happen? I left some natural compounds there to break addiction, to tap you into spirituality. Why didn't you use them? And I go, oh, well, because my doctor said don't do it, or some politician told me it wasn't. You have to think for yourself at this point, and I think if we can collectively just acknowledge that we've got a problem that's not going to be solved with the tools that we had coming into it, we're going to be a lot better off, and we're going to save a lot of people's lives.
I already know what God is going to say to this man. Well done, good and faithful servant. And before I hand you back the microphone, which you should have given me, is I want to introduce Ryan Rogers. He's the executive director of the Reed Foundation. And Joel Furno, who's a member of our board, who I brought with me as well. So I want to thank each and every one of you. And together, with hope and with God, all things are possible.
One other person who's here that I think is important to call out, Nick Caros over here with the white hair. He is Universal Ibogaine in Canada. They are working on getting Ibogaine legalized in Canada, and I think it has a good shot there too, because Canada is a socialized medicine. So their government's trying to heal people and not spend money, not trying to sell them pharmaceuticals like they're doing here. So hopefully, Nick, they're in the process of raising money now. They're going to do their file with Health Canada what they need to go through that legalization process and test it. But we all know the results. We just have to right now, because this has been stigmatized and it's been hasn't been able to be studied for 50 years. We have to do the research, and Kentucky's about to be the place where that happens. So it's going to be really special when it happens, and you guys, everybody here tonight, and the whole state of Kentucky, I think you guys are going to save, millions of lives over the next few years that never had to be lost. So, congratulations on that. Another question? Yep.
Yeah, my question is, what is the cost associated with the treatment? In addition to that, so this is treatment for the addiction, but what about those things that led to the addiction? Mm-hmm. So being proactive on that, what's some of the things that you do, Lamar, right now, so that you don't go back to that statement you made?
Meditating, pray, surround myself with good company. I think that's a lot of problems with most addicts. You trying to be the habit, you can't hang out with somebody that got habit. Meditating, stay present all the time. That's my daily practice.
Yeah, and I would say that, Ibogaine is very special, because I think a lot of other medicines and psychedelics, if you want to fight it, you can. There are people that try to do all these different things to try to heal themselves, and they go in and they don't really want to heal, and it doesn't work. I think Ibogaine is special in that even if you go in kicking and screaming, even if you did heroin at the airport the night before and you go down to Ambia, you have that Ibogaine experience. It's going to work on every area of your brain. It's going to wipe your prefrontal cortex so you don't have cravings. And I don't think that we're strong enough to fight against fentanyl. I don't think it's like state of mind that you can do it. I really think you need some God-given help from the plant world to break these things.
Yeah, the price is anywhere from for a detox, anywhere from about $7,500 to about $20,000, depending on what you're detoxing from. But if you hold that in comparison to checking into a clinic that doesn't work for 28 to 90 days, it's very cost effective.
And I would say a lot of the cost has to do with You have to go to Mexico and do it. You have to go off the grid because it's not legal. If this were legal and we could access pure ibogaine, like Nick is going to do with Universal Ibogaine in Canada, these prices will come way down. This is just practitioners who, they're facing potential legal issues for doing this. They've got all kinds of things that they have to take care of that are unnecessary. If this were available medically in the United States, I think it would be down in the few $1,000 area. And like they said, compare that to a month in rehab that's going to cost you $50,000, $100,000 depending on where you are, or your insurance company's going to have to pay it, and it's probably not going to work because it's only usually 5% effective. Where ibogaine is, I don't know. I don't want to guess at a number, but it's very high. So yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Odom, for sharing your story. My best friend was ready to geek out because he's a Lakers fan. He's watching the Asian games. So, thank you for really sharing your story as a black man. I wanted to ask, in terms of the time commitment for going through a treatment like this, thinking about our society now, the ability to devote that time to treatment. And I would love, I'm a therapist, I would love for people to be able to devote time to go get and heal themselves. But the way our society is now, how do y'all see that fitting into the framework of managed care and health care? Like, we don't have the time for people to be able to do that. How do y'all change that aspect of how society is right now?
It's actually quicker, yeah. You're talking about Lamar left there, a couple days later. So typically people stay at Ambios, 7, 10 days, something like that, where everywhere else you're there for 30, 45 days, and then you're probably coming back once or twice. So, this is very special. I mean, this is not some pharmaceutical that they're giving people. This is not, some where you got to white knuckle this thing. This is, an African root that they found out. They scrape the bark from a root that grows in Africa. A lot of it comes from Gabon. They scrape the root and they just take the alkaloids from that and give it to you. That's ibogaine. So if this thing's growing naturally and we could harvest it properly and have a socially conscious way to develop it, there'd be plenty of ibogaine for everybody. The cost would not be prohibitive like it is now. And like I said, a few days to a week sounds a lot better for people to try to do. Yeah, sure.
I used to be on Wall Street, and no one even took 2-week vacation. It was typically 1 week. And when we would put someone into treatment, their customers would call up and say, "Where's Gordy?" "Well, he's on vacation." "Great." They call the next week. "Where's Gordy?" "He's on vacation still." "Oh, great." Once hit the 3rd week, they knew he was gone. They knew where he was because they knew he had issues. He's gone for 60 days. And you don't know when he's coming out. It's illegal to ask anyways, but it's far quicker. And that's why, the people like Lamar was just, we were fortunate to have Lamar open up about it, but there's a lot of athletes and musicians and actors, actresses, and Fortune 500 CEOs, C-suite executives that go into ibogaine because anyone can disappear for a week. So it's actually quicker and far more effective because when you come out of an ibogaine treatment and you don't have that craving for that drug anymore, that's 90% of the battle, as I'm sure you were aware of. So it's actually quicker and more cost effective.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Lamar, for your story. I'm a fan of Lamar fan too. But what was it like when you went through when you had your ibogaine treatment? No more craving before you had the treatment to come out and no longer have cravings. What was that experience like? That's a spiritual thing.
Yeah, all the above. Joyful. I didn't have the appetite to want to do cocaine or any other drug. I was impressed. I was happy about that damn plant with intensity. And I was just, an open book. I wanted to get better and was going to do anything to get better.
So I noticed in the movie you were vomiting, but that was nothing compared to what the withdrawals would be. Right, without that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it makes you have to do it hurt, trying to just getting everything out.
yeah.
Because if part of your addiction was that kind of your fear, or having to have to go through the withdrawals or whatever, why you just stay on it? I mean, that's just one part of it, but did that play a big part?
Ask the question again?
Was the withdrawal your number one fear?
Oh, to keep doing drugs, no, I had a couple $1,000 in my pocket, I ain't really sure.
I think usually people take, 6 weeks and it's very rough. It's, people that, a lot of people that, try to get off heroin, it's just too hard to get off. So I understand that's a horrible thing to be addicted like that. And I think if there's this African root that we can give people that can, in 12, 24 hours, break that and give them this, I call it addiction disruptor. This is a disruption, and then you have this beautiful window where you're not craving. So now you get to, make all these right choices. And I want to say one thing about ibogaine. Sometimes after ibogaine, people might try drugs again or go gambling or whatever, and all of a sudden they're like, you know what? That doesn't really resonate with me anymore. I'm not going to do that. So it's not like they come out and all of a sudden everybody's like a monk and they're just like, that's it. They may have to experience that, but when they do, they're going to know whether it resonates with them.
Brings in life.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, well, thank you for sharing your story. I know, I'm actually, before I knew I was coming here, one of the papers that I'm writing is making peace with your past and treating trauma not medicated temporarily. And so with Family Scholar House, we received one of the largest grants for recovery, and we've been trying to find strategic ways that it's effective. But I know someone mentioned about how, the things that you experienced, but what I saw in the video or in the movie was that it seemed as if you were having to face things in your past. He even said, kind of release it. So would you say that it was an experience that you, going through that experience, you kind of did have to go through the process of facing some things and kind of pressing forward, rather than just suppressing it for a temporary,
Helps you face them the right way.
right,
Instead of facing them.
right.
Not scared to look your fear in the eye.
Right, because I realized how you said, even in one of the parts of it, you said that you saw people that you heard the love.
Yeah.
Like you felt love, and it was like the things that you may have been missing, you were able to experience that, which is healing, is love.
That is, that's really well put, because I think to that point, when you experience with the guidance of this spirit and this plant, you face it, but you maybe see it from a different perspective as well. It's almost impossible to get out of that regular perspective. So if you can use a tool like this to have a new perspective, to look at it with fresh eyes. I know, Lamar, for him to hear his mom's voice, I can only imagine, I've lost people in my life, and, I think everybody that has lost somebody deserves the chance to do ibogaine as well, and just get, to the right place with that. It's not going to change that they're gone, but I think it's going to give you that piece about it. So, thank you.
Lamar, have you been approached by anybody else that's high profile, that's curious about what you've gone through? And also, would you be up for doing any ads for the state of Kentucky?
100%.
If that came available?
100%.
The reason I ask this is because we deal with parents and grandparents of addicted loved ones. And many of them have no idea what ibogaine is. And so we realize up front that education to the public is going to be where the biggest push is probably going to be needed to get help. So, if you think, has there been anybody that's contacted you and asked you about what you've gone through?
No, other high profile people? No, because I think people live without shame. They're not taking care of themselves. They're not doing what's right by themselves. So I haven't really had a lot of people on the same, I guess, level as
Get out of that.
yeah, a lot of people live with shame. But I would definitely be,
Would you be up for doing any ads?
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Thank you.
Ron?
I
Yep.
just wanted to ask a really good question. We're focusing on getting information to the Black community.
Right.
And one question I wanted to ask you is, you know, African American minorities don't typically trust
There's crap.
something like this.
I think we'll cut you off when you said it, because my father, it was an urban act. And I couldn't really see myself putting something in my veins to make it better, if that makes sense, but you have to be open, to everything if you really want to help out. Everyone trying to think.
And I think Lamar, when he came to this moment with me, he had tried everything else. I mean, he's, obviously privileged that he could try rehabs and, all these different therapists and things like that, and come to a point that he said, I'm gonna do it because I've tried everything else. Other people are like, well, maybe I'll try this and that before I, go down that path. And I think, he was lucky enough that he reached that moment to be open to ibogaine.
Yeah, the first time I went to rehab, I couldn't wait to 30 days was over, so I was still close.
Right. Can we share?
We'll take one more question.
I had a question, because what we know in recovery is that sometimes it takes an individual a lot of times before they can reach recovery. So what I want to know is this an atypical story when it comes to ibogaine? Or is one treatment the norm that you're seeing in the numbers?
Yeah, this is the norm, and you can, the MBO folks can tell you that it's such a powerful experience, to really face that and to get the support of the ibogaine physically and mentally that I've never seen anybody not get something out of the experience that was significant. And like I said, you have this window of sobriety to go change your lifestyle. And certainly if you go back into, your old habits and your old people and these things, if you're not strong and change your lifestyle some, you could revert back to that. Maybe, it could be 3 months, 6 months later, you might, fall back into that. But, compare that to how hard it is and how, ineffective some of that other stuff is.
So to be very clear, what I'm asking is, have you had any individuals that needed two times the treatment?
I'm gonna say it's not typical that you would do ibogaine twice. It's a sort of one and done, which is what's special about it. I do think that there's probably people that maybe want to go deeper, and at some point, a year later or 2 years later, that they would, there's some boosters that people can do. It's a lower dose type thing, and I don't want to, this is not scientifically backed yet, but I want to tell you that they have shown that a flood dose of ibogaine is about 1,000 milligrams, 1 gram. They say that if you take something like 10 milligrams a day, like a micro dose of ibogaine, they've seen it reverse Parkinson's disease. And so, because of that building of new neural pathways, and here we are, at the Muhammad Ali Center, and definitely, yeah, how do you fight that? There's no way. And here, ibogaine, because of that building new neural pathways, we have that chance. We just have to, get over sort of the ignorance that I think, Western society is this white culture with doctors with white coats, and they're like, well, we have all these books, so we know what we're doing. We're not going to listen to these people in Africa or, chanting this, that. Don't forget about it, And that stigma is, we have to break it right now and get everybody to acknowledge that this is a very special thing from a very special place. And we have the opportunity. We've had thousands of people, go through these treatments and have incredible experience. We can't, just sit here and let people tell us that, oh yeah, that's primitive stuff. We have, regular drugs that we can inject. It's not, this is an important moment where we all, I think, stand up and say, nothing else is working, we gotta give this a shot. And this 42 million of research money is gonna make that difference. It's gonna show on paper clinical results, and that's gonna allow people to say, aha, okay, now we have the evidence, let's make sure we get it to the people now.
What the FDA is.
Yeah.
While in this day, I hear that thank you for coming, but I also hear that in the state of Kentucky, we are open to our game, right? However, we are a poor state and we're funded by Medicaid heavily. And right now, it sounds like our game is one of those opportunities that's wonderful, but it's also opportunity of privilege at this point, because the cost and finances. I hear the money, the cost, but my concern is that people of color, people that live in poverty, people that are in backward communities, people that are disenfranchised and who are struggling and need this treatment. The question, I guess, is a big question, a thought question. How can we get this to everyday people that look like us in this room but have no resources? And so for me,
Yes,
I'm
there
like,
you
how
go,
can
right
we
there.
push this? How can we push this from a multi-organizational standpoint to be able to allocate? Because we can say all that, it sounds so pretty, but the reality is our people in our country and our state are suffering. In Kentucky, we are a very poor state. So I love it and I hear it, but also, how can we push it forward?
There are a couple of answers to your question. The first is a reality observation with recognition that mass media does not represent reality. I grew up in the Appalachian portion of Virginia, just about 50 miles from the Kentucky state line. And for the longest time, the face of the opioid epidemic has been a bunch of poor white hillbillies who were referred to as hillbillies derisively until folks in the Hamptons started to develop their own opioid use issues. And once the color green became involved, there was a transformational attitude that occurred in terms of how the problem needed to be addressed. In 2021, for the very first time in Kentucky, the face of the opioid epidemic changed from white to black. And right now, the epicenter is in the west end of Louisville, driven by the insidious introduction of the silent executioner of fentanyl. The opportunity associated with Ibogaine in Kentucky and across the United States is to punch through the manufactured division between white, regular, everyday white folks and regular, everyday black folks. Who in the state of Kentucky have far more in common with each other than anybody talking to them on the TV about how they need to see each other. I'm going to try to repeat what was said at our public announcement, and that is, there is a redemptive beauty in a medicine from West Africa that can bring healing to East Kentucky and the west end of Louisville together through racial unity that is based on our kinship as images of an almighty God. Come on. There are many people who are serving this cause. I am just one servant who has had the tremendous blessing of being able to speak to God's medicine and what it can do. And whether it happens here or it happens elsewhere, it is going to happen. And the people who are here to serve their Maker will ensure that everybody who has a need to access it shall have it. Come hell or high There is no power nor principality in this country that will bring a stop to what God's will is. And His will is that His children feel His love and be brought healing of what He has designed in this nature that is far more advanced than anything these pharmaceutical companies poised to us to send to deliver.
Definitely, Paul, to be the governor of Kentucky at some point. Thank you, everybody. We're going to wrap up, but and maybe are we going to? Who's over there, or should we? All right. Okay. So we're gonna head out for a bit, and we thank everybody for coming, and appreciate your efforts.
I'll talk to you.
You have a second for a couple questions? Or
I was going to ask you, this documentary, do you think it had a great effect today on the crowd that was here?
I think the crowd that is here is open to the documentary like this. We want to put more faces on this type of treatment as a possibility.
And
So is what we're doing to bring more exposure to Muhammad Ali Center because it's the epicenter for Black people here in this city.
And what is your name?
Vaughn.
Yes, I thought so. It's nice to meet you. My name is Maxwell of Stay Live Streams.
Oh, thank you for being here.
Happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was a powerful panel discussion here today, once again in the Muhammad Ali Center. That's all I really have to say. I'm going to take all that in that I did here, and if you do nothing else, please stay live.
Well, I worked with him at the stage. Brian is like one of my favorites.
If you do nothing else.
If you do nothing else.
Do nothing else. If you do nothing else.
If you do nothing else.
If you do nothing else.
Stay live.
It's a new day in Louisville. A day where children play on a brand new playground in Central Park, where new businesses are opening from Barrett Avenue to Shelby Street, from Oak Street to Dixie. Today, more families will move into new, affordable homes, more than at any time in the past decade. And with these investments, they can look forward with confidence to the future. It's a new day in Louisville. And under the leadership of Councilman Baker, our district is filled with hope, progress, and promise. Let's keep the momentum going.